If you want to know what Konami have in store for the next Forbidden Unlimited list, stay tuned for the Duels Down Under June Banlist predictions. Before we get into the hits and the limitations of this list, I just want to say that it is not my intention to destroy any of the current top meta decks. Sealed product is still selling for both Secret Slayers, Dual Overload, and of course the newly released Eternity Code. Hitting any of those cards or any of the cards that have been released in that product is going to be quite dumb. There is no way Konami are not going to continue to make as much money as they can off of the punters like us by leaving those cards fully untouched. With that being said, it's time we get into the banned section of the list. Block Dragon is the first card with its head on the chopping block. It's too bad that such a great quality card has become so broken in a deck like Adamantipator. Being able to bring it back turn after turn, even during your player's turn, to give yourself so much advantage once it's been sent to the graveyard is just too strong. A card like this does need to be checked, and the only way to check it is to take it to 0. I guess Konami could try and play it at 1, but I don't think that it's going to make that much of a difference. Whether it's at 1, whether it's at 3, it is still absolutely busted and needs to be taken out of the game. The next card and the final card I've got on the banned section is Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. Locking your opponent out of the extra deck takes me down memory lane when we're looking at Domain Monarchs. Except Domain Monarchs are simply outed by a well-timed Twin Twister or a well-timed Galaxy Cyclone. It's not seeing so much play these days in the meta. Back row removal cards are quite popular in the side deck, but why should a deck be able to play a card that locks their opponent out of one of their specific mechanisms in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh? It's not fair, it shouldn't be a thing, let's cut it from the game. On to the limited list. Now this part of the list is where I thought I would get a little bit creative. I think Konami have the amazing opportunity here, while there are no sanctioned events on, to do a little bit of experimenting. While they're not going to damage any of the top meta decks directly, they are going to have to do something about the cards all around them. By doing that, it also gives them the opportunity to maybe bring some cards back off the list that are also going to boost up the decks around them. So going from 3 to 1, I have 2 cards in a very close relationship, Tuning and Jet Synchron. I know Tuning stops other decks from using it, but in terms of the synchro spam that we're seeing lately, I don't think Tuning would be so much of a bad hit. Jet Synchron is a 1-card full combo for the Adamantipator and the Eldritch Synchro decks, so we're also taking that to 1 as well. Both cards are currently played at 3 each in both of those decks. What we're going to see players do then is to have to run 4 other not so optimal cards that are going to try and get them into the Jet Synchron 1-card combo. I think that playing non-optimal cards is going to limit the consistency that those decks are going to have, and they're going to have to find different ways around it. We want to see initiative, we want to see inventiveness, and we want to see some innovation in the way these decks can function. If we were to ban these cards outright, they'd find another way to do it. We want the players to find a way to do the same thing, but with less optimal cards. The next cards are going to be currently banned, and they need to come back to 1. The first card I have is Denglong, the first of the Yang Zheng. This card needs to come back. It's a great synchro card, and all it basically does is searches out the counter trap. If it's not searching out the counter trap, what is it doing? We're going to link it off. We might go into something a little bit bigger. That's what we're doing anyway, so why not let it back in the game? The next card is Blaster, Dragon Ruler of Inferno, I think its name is. Let me know in the comments what its proper name is. There are no fire decks currently doing any real damage in the meta. What we want to see is a Dragon Ruler come back on the next upcoming list, so we can finally get another one to match it. Dragons aren't doing much at the moment. Even the Link Dragons, they're not doing a lot. Yes, some of them still play a copy of Tempest, and they might run a single copy of Blaster, but it's not going to break the deck too much. Infernoid's probably one of the most popular fire decks in the game. They're not doing much, even though they got a little bit of support in Eternity Code. I don't think they're going to do much with a copy of Blaster. They'll probably run it, but if they're banishing their resources already, they're probably not going to have enough fuel in the grave to get Blaster on board. The other fire deck is Salamangreat, and I don't think running that single dragon card is going to do much for them. It's probably a less optimal choice, but some players might want to give it a go, and once again, it's forcing players to have a little bit of innovation in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! The next card is probably one of the most controversial cards on the ban list, and that is Fairy Tale Snow. I don't understand why this card was taken out of the game. Yes, it did break the Burning Abyss as well as the Thunder Dragon combos, but with a card like Called by the Grave at hand, I think we have a way to stop it. Cards like Ghost Bell Haunted Mansion will also negate the use of this card as well, so there are plenty ways around the card so we can bring it back into the game. It's also going to be a great way for less top tier decks or lower tier decks to actually get a little bit of presence on board to start linking off into those bigger plays. The last card, we always want to see one of those cards that's been banned for such a long time coming back off the list. This time for me it's going to be Change of Heart. I understand Mind Control has recently been taken from 3 to 2 down to 1. I'd like to see Change of Heart come back just to see how it'll run in the meta. If you remember, not so long ago Konami experimented with the equip spell Snatch Steal and put it straight back on the list. I don't think Change of Heart would do too much damage in the meta, but boy would it be good to see some of that old school card in the decks of today. That's it for the limited list. It was pretty short, but I do think it'd have quite a big impact on the game. The next card the next section we need to talk about is the semi-limited list. ABC Buster Dragon was wrongfully put on the list in the first place. I guess it was preemptive of the Master Rule 5, but I think we've found out now that even though the Master Rule 5 is in full swing, nobody is playing ABC. It would be great to see ABC Buster Dragon come back to let those ABC players actually use combos with the card, Union Carrier, as well as some of the new McKenna cards that are going to do great for that deck. I would love to see it come back. I'm sure there are plenty of players out there who would love to see it come back, and bringing it back to 2 simply makes sense. The last card on my semi-limited list is Necros of Unicorn. We need to bring back some of this ritual support. We've got great cards in the Megalith cards. We've got great cards in the Incantations, but they need something that's going to turn off those amazing extra deck effects from the people running extra deck heavy decks. We need a card like Unicorn to turn them off. Bring it back to 2. Let's see how it plays out. I don't think it's going to do too much damage to the meta whatsoever, even though we are seeing some rogue Necros decks pop up here and there in top 16s in these online tournaments. I think that bringing it back to 2 isn't going to have a great impact on the game whatsoever. Now, the unlimited list is where I think Konami need to spend a lot of their time. They're at a point now where there's no physical Yu-Gi-Oh being played. They need to keep players happy. They can't hit any of the problem cards in the format because people have gone and shelled out the cash and they're still yet to play them in real life. That means we need to check some of these cards that have been banned, maybe limited, to try and put some impetus on stopping these hardcore meta decks and letting the rogue players do some damage of their own. The first card coming back to 3 is, of course, Tour Guide from the Underworld. Tour Guide has been at 2 since the last list and still hasn't seen a lot of play. The play that it has seen is in the random Unchained decks that keep popping up. Yes, Tour Guide is a powerful card, but also Tour Guide has probably been power crept out of the game. The next card coming back from 2 to 3 is Sky Striker Mecha Widow Anchor. Yes, we did see the latest, I think it was the LCS tournament over in the States was taken out by a Sky Striker deck. I don't think bringing Widow Anchor back to 3 is going to increase the amount of representation, because Ryan, the guy who topped with it, did an absolutely fantastic job. He knows exactly how to play the deck well, knows exactly when to respond to his opponent, and knows how to play through those shitty hands that Sky Strikers are now known for. Bringing Widow Anchor back to 3 isn't going to be a big deal at all. The next card I've got coming back to 3 is Reasoning. I understand that Monstergate has been back at 3, and it does have the cost of tributing a monster. Reasoning is a free special summon, but it still costs you a lot of cards in your deck. I really feel like that luck factor that the opponent has to try and guess which level you're bringing out is really going to impact how awesome Reasoning coming back into the game will be. There are so many decks that might be able to use this as a bit of a tech as well to try and get some more cards in the graveyard, and I really think it's time Reasoning was set free from the list. The next card I have coming back is Light Stage, still at 1. Trickstars are doing absolutely nothing except popping up here and there as a 5-card engine. Bringing Light Stage back isn't going to affect that at all, because Terraforming is still a card. Would they play 3 Light Stage? Would they play 2 and a Terraforming? Or would they still play 1 and a single copy of Terraforming? It might force them to play less copies of Candina, which isn't a bad thing. It's making their decks a bit more consistent, but I don't think Trickstar are going to come back to do anything to the meta. The next card I have coming back is A Hero Lives. We know that people went out and spent heaps and heaps of money on Malicious Bane and a Dusted Gold in Legendary Duelist. I think it was 5. Yeah, 5. They've also spent the money on Liquid Soldier in Legendary Duelist number 6. Yet we haven't seen heroes do a lot in the top of the game at all. I think bringing A Hero Lives back at the cost of half of their life points is actually quite a good deal. Getting that hero on the field, bringing back Stratos, which has been released to 3, would be a great move for Konami to get those players playing their favourite decks, the hero strategy. The next card coming back is Totally Awesome. Just like ABC Dragon Buster, I don't think Totally Awesome was rightfully hit. It was hit for the potential sins of another Master Rule. Bringing this card back might see some Paleozoic players come back into the fray, but I don't think that those strategies are going to do anything in terms of top tier performances. Totally Awesome is a great card when used off Bahamut Sharks, so water strategies such as Plunder Patrol, Mermaids, and of course the Marincess decks might use it, but very rarely are they going to have room in the extra deck to run more than a single copy anyway. Bring Totally Awesome back to 3. That would be a totally awesome move. The next card could be a little bit more controversial. The rank 6 card Beatrice. It needs to come back. I did hear that a Burning Abyss deck did just take out a PPG tournament over in the States, so why not get a little bit more momentum moving and give them another copy of Beatrice. Plenty of room in the extra deck. Beatrice is such a good card to send a card, discard a card, and then to use those graveyard effects, but Burning Abyss is pretty much the only deck that is going to utilize it anyway. With Seer and Graph still at single copies on the ban list, I don't think that we're going to see Burning Abyss strategy impact the meta too much. We might see it splashed into some rogue strategies here or there, and I would really like to see how it's able to perform. Bring Beatrice back to more than one copy. Ritual Beast Ulticana Hawk on the list for such a long time. I'm pretty sure it's still there, so players don't decide to play the Ritual Beast strategy and take 20 minutes for their first turn. With the new time rules in place, a 20-minute first turn could mean that only one player gets to play Yu-Gi-Oh! In each game. Ulticana Hawk is a great card, don't get me wrong, but I think the Ritual Beast strategy has been power crept so far out of the game now that it wouldn't really have an impact if it even saw play at all. I personally don't think we would see anyone at all playing that Ritual Beast strategy in a competitive kind of tournament. The last card I need to talk about is the card that everyone needs to be talking about on the Forbidden Unlimited list, and that is Max C. Everyone's favourite insect card. I think it's time to release the C from the list. with decks like Adamantipator's and the special summoning heavy decks that go on in a single turn, it doesn't matter what strategy it's going into. Heroes special summon multiple times per turn. Adamantipator's special summon. Dragon Link special summon over and over again. It's time that we had a way that we could ask our opponent to actually think about what they're doing. Ash Blossom isn't enough anymore. Nibiru isn't enough anymore. If we can drop a Maxi into the graveyard and give our opponent the chance to take... Are they going to take the challenge? Are they going to allow their opponent to start drawing cards that might draw them into outs like Nibiru and Ghost Ogre and Ash Blossom? Will they continue to special summon? I think putting the intent back into the turn player's hand and making them actually think rather than strapping their helmet on and going through their first turn combos is the best way to move Yu-Gi-Oh forward. Yu-Gi-Oh has turned from a thinking player's game into a coin toss game. If you go first, you win. If you go first, you get to set up a board. If you go second, it's up to you to break it. Otherwise, you may as well scoop and then it's your turn to start mounting your attack. I don't know what you think, guys, but I would like to see some of these changes happen on the list. Let me know in the comments what you think the changes on the list are going to be. Let me know what you thought of my predictions. Like the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and of course, I'll see you in the next one.